So here it is. I just watched a documentary called Radio Unnameable on Amazon Prime. And once again, it got me thinking about podcasts, about recording, about interviewing, all that kind of stuff. And I figured I might as well, sit here and do it. I have the equipment. And currently the family's out, so I figure why not do it. And here I am. It's interesting because I constantly get re-inspired to do this, and I almost could take it as a sign, because I know, like in the atmosphere of what's been going on for me. I've been doing a lot of job searching. Anyone that pretty much has talked to me since I've graduated, the conversation usually ends up turning out to be the same, where it leads to, what are you doing now? And then I have to say, at least in the last 4 months, I have to say, well, I'm working part-time at Best Buy and looking for something and all that kind of stuff. And it's a little saddening because, obviously I'd like to be telling them different news. But you just have to persevere, and you have to keep applying, because there is going to be that one thing that works. And the other interesting thing about it is also, like, obviously I went to school for film and moving image, and did a lot of that stuff. I did 3 feature films last year that I was lucky to be a part of and got paid for and all that kind of stuff. But obviously those ended. Those were contract work. And so now it's trying to figure out, well, what's next? I mean, I have such a passion for a lot of things, that it can be a challenge sometimes to figure out what exactly I'm looking for in work. I mean, I'm very satisfied doing a lot of things, and then if they could be paid, that'd be great. But the truth is, a lot of times they're not. So I like video work. I love writing. I like, doing something like this. I love photography. I like just being creative in any way I possibly can. And people don't necessarily pay you just to be yourself and be creative, unless you're doing something a little more specific. And I think that's where my trouble is. And also, in my own doing, I chose, in the school that I went to, they had 4 tracks. Now it's 2 tracks, but 4 tracks to choose from. And, you kind of specialize on either producing, writing, cinematography, editing, whatever. And I chose producing. And I won't say that's a mistake, because I got a lot of information out of it, good information out of it. But I think, looking back now, only even a year later, if I had the opportunity to do it again, I would have chosen my younger self, or told my younger self, I should say, to choose editing or cinematography, because that's where the work is. It's also where the work is in graphic design, in After Effects, which they didn't really put enough emphasis on at my school. And I think that was a fault of theirs, because I think it would have been important to take, had they had it, more of these, because everything I've applied to, not everything, but a lot of what I've applied to has been, needing of After Effects, having a good understanding of it, all that kind of stuff. So anything I know, which is very minuscule, of After Effects, has been self-taught via YouTube, via my own research, or what have you. So yeah, it's been tough. So, I've been looking, and I'm getting some information about getting a social media certificate from a college here in New Jersey that would allow me to have a better understanding of pretty much what I just had said. Not so much After Effects like doing movie special effects, but just being able to kind of handle graphics, and more so with websites. Obviously, I created my own website, but it was through Wix, and it's very just like drag and drop stuff. It's not like necessarily coding or anything like that. So that's what I'm trying to do, and we'll see. Obviously, I have to get the information first and all that kind of stuff, but it's an 8-month program, which is really cool. It's not like I'd be going fully back to school, spending another 2+ years in school and also 2+ years of money. It would just be 8 months, and that's it, hopefully. But I keep just doing what I like. You can't get bogged down by it. You can't let it get to you too much, because there's always something else to apply to. And that's kind of what I keep telling myself and doing. And obviously, my parents want me to find something. They're want me to do something I'm going to enjoy, but that's going to be well paying and all that kind of stuff. They want the best for me, and I of course am very appreciative of it, but just in trying to process all of it, it can be a challenge sometimes of just kind of like, I'm applying, but I'm also one of 100 people, whatever many people applying, and I just wasn't what they were looking for. And, trying to figure out, you can ask these companies, what is it that you're looking for that I didn't have? But most of the time, they just won't answer you back. I've emailed them, after saying, they'll say, unfortunately, we're going to go with somebody else or whatever. Wish you best of luck. I've become used to that message. But, and sometimes especially with ones that I was really thinking I would get, I would email them back and just ask what it was that they were looking for that I didn't have. And I've yet to get an answer back. Because of course they're not required to give you an answer. And to them that's a waste of time and effort and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that they even emailed you back to tell you no, to them is a lot. And on my end, it isn't asking a lot for a thanks for applying, however, email, because if I was in their shoes, I feel like, or being in my shoes for that matter, I'm sitting here waiting to find out one way or another. And I know plenty of friends who are the same way, where you're sitting here and, no news is good news, essentially, at least the way I look at it. Right. So as long as I say you don't get an email or a call that says no, then there's a chance it could be a yes. So getting that closure of just saying, hey, thanks for applying, however, we're going to go with somebody else, is such a relief, of saying like, okay, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be, and, I can move on. But sitting there having these jobs and careers that you apply to that don't answer you back because they're too busy, because they forget there's another person on the other side of it, whatever the reasoning may be, they don't answer you, and you're stuck in limbo here, kind of like, well, what happens if this job applies? My mom, the job that she's currently at now, it took a couple of months for her to hear back. And now, obviously, she's been there a year plus, whatever it is. And obviously it worked out in the end for her. But for me, there are jobs that, I got plenty of no's for or no responses for, rather, that I haven't heard back from and probably never will. And that's just the way it is. But it's the unknowing of like, well, is it a yes or a no? It's basically, I'd rather get a no than no response, right? I think that's the same way with the way we text people these days, where we send a message to somebody, and even if they're busy or whatever, you would hope that they would at least give you the courtesy of saying exactly that. Hey, I'm busy. I got something going on right now. One, can I talk to you later? Or, I'm busy right now. I can't talk. That is so much more positive than no one ever answering you at all, because it's just, there's such a undertowing rudeness, I feel like, when that happens, that maybe isn't intentional, and sometimes it is, but sometimes, hopefully it's not. That it's just such a relief, a moment of like, okay, well, they're just busy. I can understand that we get busy from time to time. Then somebody completely choosing to see your message and then not respond. And hours later, or time later, is one thing, but there are times I've had plenty of that they just completely don't answer at all, and it stings a little bit. It's a little like, okay, well, guess I'm not important, or whatever. That you just, it's made me quickly become very thick-skinned, and also able to brush off stuff very quickly. I mean, I try to keep an even keel about myself. I don't let things get to me, or if I do, it's very quick. I find alternate ways to handle it, of let me go do something I like and kind of take the mind off it, and then you just let it wither away. You don't let it necessarily build up inside you. And that's just what you have to do. You gotta take a deep breath in, do something you like. Maybe I like, now that it's getting warmer out, I'd like to go places and adventure a little bit, and oftentimes by myself. I can give you an example where I went for a job interview, and that one actually I thought really went well, and I wouldn't find out till 2 days later that I didn't get the job. But at the same day that I went for this interview, I ended up going to a local state park that I saw on the way there. I literally went home and then drove back to the state park and spent a little time pretty much by myself. I talked to one guy that I didn't know. I ended up doing a YouTube video about him. He was an ice fisherman, and I just walked around. I took pictures. I kind of processed everything for a bit, and then that was it. I just haven't really stewed on it for a while, because you can't sit there and just let it overwhelm you with stuff, because then you're just going to fall into a depressive state, and that's just not something I want. So I just say, okay, this is what happened. I understand. I'm going to grow from it, and I'm just going to keep applying, because obviously there was something better in mind. Whether you believe in a higher power causing it, whether you believe in karma, whether you believe in everything happens for a reason, whether you don't believe in any of that stuff and things just happen the way they happen, whatever the case may be for you, obviously things do happen, and our causes cause reactions, cause and effect. And when one thing doesn't happen, it allows you to look at something else that may happen. If job A worked out, well, maybe job B was better for you, and you wouldn't be able to get that chance. But because job A didn't work out, now you get to see job B and apply for it, and it works out, and you get to be happy for it. Now, at this point, I'm probably on job BB or something like that. I probably ran through the alphabet and some, but I think I looked at my Indeed account, which is not the only place I've applied to jobs, but just on Indeed, I think I applied to 79, almost 80 jobs. And of those, I think I went on 3 interviews, and none of them that I've gotten. So let that sink in. It's a lot. It's a lot of rejection. But when you look back, I was explaining this to a friend of mine recently, who's kind of in the similar boat for something else she does, where I was like, I'd rather look back from now, years from now, and see it and say, you know what, there was all of those no's, but that one yes that counted made it all worth it. And, here's where I am now, than be back in my present day and just be handed something. And then when I'm reflecting, just being like, oh, well, I was just kind of handed that. I didn't really earn it. I want to earn everything I get in my life, or at least feel deserving of it. And, if those jobs didn't work out, it's because that's just what it was. It's tough. It's annoying. It's a pain in the butt, but, you just can't let it get you. You have to, keep persisting and keep moving forward and applying and trying and learning things, keep educating yourself, because the more you know, the more you'll stand out among people. And that's something, I don't just say that for whomever may ever listen to this. I say this more for me, because if I tell myself this enough, then hopefully it'll happen. And because education is such a powerful tool to have, being able to know something that somebody else doesn't is a pretty powerful thing. That there's that expression that the pen is mightier than the sword, and in some cases it's the other way around, but in most cases I do believe that. I think that having knowledge can go a long way in comparison to not having knowledge, and I won't trace that into politics, but I'm sure somebody could, and figure out how that could connect to what's happening as of 2018, February of 2018. Yeah, and this is a very long-winded, as usual, rambling of me saying, I like this form of art creating. I love capturing this audio of having conversation. Obviously, it's hard to have a conversation when you're by yourself, unless you're, hearing voices or something like that. Yeah, to be able to bounce off of somebody, to be able to talk to somebody, something that I think is a little bit lost these days. I'll give you an example. So later this afternoon, I'm supposed to text somebody who I reached out to a while ago. Is my dad's friend's friend, or my dad's work friend's friend, whatever you want to call it, who does video production work. And I reached out to him originally, and then he let me know he had a job coming up for a Friday. I had something to do, and that's what I let him know. I said, I'm interested, but you have something this Friday or whatever. And because it was via text, and I'm known to be a little blunt with my texting, a little straightforward with my texting, and some people don't necessarily read into the little more lightheartedness that I'm going for, or enjoyment, or the basically any emotion other than like he's not interested or whatever. That's exactly the opinion he got. He just thought I wasn't interested and never reached out again. And I just took it as like, okay, well, I actually kind of forgot about it until my dad brought it up just yesterday, because I applied to so many things, and I can't sit here and fantasize about all of them, because I apply to so many, and if it doesn't work out, then the less I thought about it, the better. I was just like, oh, well, so be it. But anyway, this one, my dad talked to his friend again and was trying to figure out what it was, and he was told that the guy got a bad vibe or whatever. And long story short, it's been amended, and I'm supposed to reach out to him later again today, but I have to be careful. I'm going to have to really choose how I write it so that it's clear that, hey, I'm interested, just let me know. Obviously, it's tough when I have a 2 week ahead of time schedule with my part-time job, that I can't just poof take off a day here, day there. This week coming up, I know I heard that he has something with a Thursday I happen to have off, so that works out. But going forward, I would need some kind of, warning, or, just some time that I can take off. Like I already took off, March 16th, 17th, 18th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, something like that, for my buddy Patrick to come up and visit. And, that's done already. It's weeks in advance. That schedule doesn't exist yet and all that kind of stuff. But if he wants me to do like, not this Thursday, but like next week or the week after that or whatever, I already have my schedule for it. So it's tough. But that's what I'm trying to say is with texting and all that kind of stuff, there's oftentimes, feelings can be misconstrued, or not taken in the context you were hoping for, because it's just words on a screen. There's no, there's lack of emotion behind it, that you would get when you're actually speaking to somebody. In person is the best way to speak to somebody or to converse with somebody. But when you can't do that, the next best thing is either on the phone or via now with FaceTime, Skype, whatever, video chatting. One way that you can, or that you can have voice to voice, because you can hear how people are reacting or saying something and understanding how they feel and all that kind of stuff that you wouldn't get necessarily with a text. There are ways that you can be like, put an exclamation point and be excited, or, extra periods to mean, you're taking a dramatic pause or whatever. You can word it certain ways, but more often than not, it gets, misunderstood. And I've gotten that plenty of times of like somebody not quite getting what I meant, or my emotion behind it. So I have to end up putting like LOL for like when I'm being sarcastic or something like that. So, but, yes, we'll see how that goes. And then, I want this, whatever this is, I'm not going to put a name on it yet. I don't even have a name for the show yet. I want this just to be, for all I know, it could be just I record me talking to people and then never do anything with it and just hold on to them. Or it could be that I post them somewhere, to share. I'm back on Twitter. I shamefully say, because, new account, all that stuff. I deleted the other account. Ooh, that sounded gross. I'm back on Twitter because I wanted it to be a tool. It to be a tool, not for me to be a tool. I wanted it to be a tool for me to connect with people that I wouldn't get with Instagram, because hashtags and things like that are a little more well used on Twitter. They're a little more easier to connect with people, and also, you literally can tag somebody on Twitter and they're more likely to see it. You can do the same thing on Instagram and all that kind of stuff, but it's just Twitter seems to be where it's at with that kind of thing. So I wanted it to be a tool. I'm not going to just tweet like, hey, I'm having eggs for breakfast, haha, or, just stupid things like that nobody cares about. I want it to be, just things I care about. So whether it be just all pictures that I've taken, whether it be, just ideas that I have and get people's reaction. Like it kind of happened today with this podcast thing. I, sent out a tweet that went, let me see if I can find it. Literally, it was just like a little while ago, and I already forgot what it was. Okay. Itching to do a podcast again. The feeling keeps returning. Would it be worth the time? I want it to be freeform. #podcast. And my friend, Patrick, reached out to me and said that he would be game. And that was it. That was all I needed. So right there, it was a tool for me, because I put out a message and I got a reaction, and there was an interest right there. Boom. I know my friend Meg and Christine, they would both be my friends, Meg and Christine, I should say, are both interested in being on some kind of thing like this. So they're obviously a potential as well. And we'll see. I'd love to be able to reach out further than that. And that's going to be me just kind of, let's call it manning up, for lack of a better term. And asking people, hey, do you want to be on this? Or just be interviewed or whatever. And not, Patrick over and over again, as much as I like talking to him, or Megan Christine over and over again. I want it to be, if I'm going to talk to people on a regular basis, I want it to be different people, because obviously people feel differently. And hopefully somebody good will come along and we can have an interesting conversation, whether it, whatever it may be about, I don't know. I'm going to try not to get too bogged down with politics, mostly because I just don't follow them close enough, and I really don't need the negative energy of like people sitting here correcting me and telling me how dumb I sound or whatever. But I feel like I can have rational conversations about certain other things, and something to do with politics. I mean, I have an understanding of what's going on, but like, I don't know all the intricacies and all the people involved and all that kind of stuff that I would sit here and do an entirely political podcast necessarily, or interview thing or whatever. But I might just interview somebody about a hobby they have, or, whatever. And that's what I wanted it to be. I just wanted it to be conversations. I've wanted to do this for a really long time, and it keeps going away and coming back and going away and coming back. And maybe this will be another one of those things where I just do this, and maybe I talk to Patrick tonight and I put it on my hard drive and I forget about it, and then I watch or see something else that reminds me of it, and then I'm right back here on a Saturday morning, talking to myself in my basement, saying, I'm going to do this podcast, and here's what it's going to be about, and, and then it just, that cycle starts over again. Hopefully not. Hopefully, but I don't expect it to be a daily thing. Certainly not a daily thing. Probably not a weekly thing. It'll be, or like, it's not going to be structured. Essentially, it's probably going to be, if I do, this episode today, then it might be 3 weeks before I do another one, and then a week later after that, and then a year, or, whatever. I don't know. Something crazy like that, where I just do it when it feels right. And that's kind of what my YouTube channel is too, where I haven't done a video in like a month because I just haven't had anything that's really been interesting to me, that I wanted to speak about. I may do one. I'm waiting to see if I get my film pictures back that I took in Richmond, Virginia. Maybe I'll do a YouTube video about that, but that's a whole different thing. This is more conversation focused, things like that. And yeah, we'll just see what happens. And yeah, and hopefully something good will come of it, something positive, and that we can like look back on and be excited about, and I'll listen to and be blown away that was my voice then, at 22. Maybe it'll be deeper or higher somehow, I don't really know, but only time will tell, so we'll see what happens.